Daydreams, the album, is the fifth studio album by Little Rock, Arkansas rapper, your favorite filmmaker, and founder of the film production company DAYVISION, Mike D. I was introduced to Mike's music through my 2020 review of his third album, Everything Is Fine, Focus. In that same year, he released the film The Black Vote and an accompanying soundtrack headlined by the musical collective The Tribe through his company. In my first videocast, Hip Hop Sub 10, which I launched in 2023 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the hip hop genre, and yes, a second season will be happening soon enough, one of my interviewees was Mike himself. Before we met online, he informed me that the entries on his top 10 list were all soundtracks to black movies. And while I won't spoil what those entries were, you'll just have to watch/listen to the episode to find out. My main takeaway from our discussion was his fondness for soundtracks that encapsulated the era the films were made in, the stories they told, and the artists who immortalized their themes and messages through song. Mike stated that this new album unfolds like a film, created for artists who are defined by their storytelling. Filmmakers who build worlds and dreamers determined to live up to the title on the marquee. Hence the inspiration behind the album cover. Speaking of album cover, on a side note, I wonder what Mike thought about the trailer to Antoine Fuqua's upcoming Michael Jackson biopic that literally dropped a day ago at the time of me preparing this review. With his feet planted firmly in both the music and film worlds, it was only a matter of time that he'd properly marry the two on a project. However, I'd make the argument that Mike's previous release, Wakefield, which he initially planned to be his final studio album before fully transitioning into filmmaking, was executed in a film-like fashion with its narrative based on his emotional connection to his titular hometown. Unlike Wakefield, the entirety of Daydreams the album wasn't produced by fellow beatmaker Third House, but he's given the opportunity to set the tone of the record, which he does quite brilliantly through the opening track, Will You Still Dream? Over its soft layers of pianos and guitars, Mike and guest singer Ebony Calhoun Smith sing a short refrain asking the listener if it's worth pursuing your dreams when you've picked yourself back up more times than you could count. After a quick bit of MC work, courtesy of Mike's father, at the end of Will You Still Dream, the thematic and musical tones of the album are established on the following track, Proud of Me. The wavy, euphoric production captures the high of success Mike embodies on the track, and yet he exhibits a cool, humble demeanor when he raps about the struggles he overcame, his fascination with black celebrities in hip-hop magazines like The Source and televised events like the BET Awards, and his recent accomplishments as an indie filmmaker. He even dropped some moments of witty wordplay like, watch how I add to the moves, I make movies, and I saw what Master P can do, and it's nuts. I love how the album's dreamy musical aesthetic established on Proud of Me is maintained on the subsequent tracks, starting with the single Picture Perfect. The beat on this track is notably spicier than its predecessor, with a smooth groove that sounds tailor-made for cruising in your car. More on that in a bit. Though he continues his lyrical victory lap, this time with an impressive verse from Arkansas rapper and stand-up comedian ABG Rocky, Mike stresses on how hard work and support from friends and family resulted in the wins he's currently celebrated. He even drops one of the album's standout bars through a mission statement of sorts near the end of his verse. In due time, that 9 to 5 is omitted because I'm working the night shift for you to see the day vision. Both a topical and instrumental switch up occurred through the album's lead single, Slabbin', which is actually a remix of Slabbin' OG, one of the two tracks on Mike's recently released Taster EP, Daydreams 4. On this version, guest vocalist Adama Chisley sings a hook, which is this car-oriented reworking of the classic Miami-based anthem Shorty Swing My Way from KP and Envy. And if you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out the 1998 compilation album Rhythm and Quad 166 Volume 1. You're welcome. Anyway, Slabbin' feels like a spiritual successor to Mike's Joyride duology, which started on his 2021 EP March 30 and continued on Wakefield, with its southern flavored production and adoration of vintage, tricked out cars on full display. It features a verse apiece from BZ the Sinister of Joyride Part 1 fame and Sleepy the Truth, both of whom as a rap duo, kill-a-flowz, give off instant UGK and 8-Ball and MJG vibes on the first half of this track. Mike wisely sticks to his dream team on his verse as he raps about enjoying himself on the road with his friends while being cautious of the surroundings while on the road to success. Speaking of friends, the album takes a dark turn on the third house-produced track, Friends, which is a somber commentary on the nature of fake friends, particularly those who remain jealous of his success or require favors of him even though they never supported him on his journey. To me, what's interesting about Friends is how it shares its chorus, sung on this track by the Tematope Choir, with the D1 and BG collabo My Enemies from D's excellent Hypocritical Hop album of last year. To be fair, a sample from the original gospel song, which admittedly I'm still unknowledgeable about, was used on My Enemies. But it all goes to show how timely its hook is in the way it commands your attention and perfectly summarizes the message of the song like it does on Friends. On the next track, Fund, we're treated to some nocturnal, jazzy production laced with horns, snare drums, and hi-hats, and a solid hook and outro provided by guest vocalist G&H. Mike tells a brief story on the first verse about a kid he ran into who was selling bottled water. In a display of his righteous personality, unwavered by his recent achievements, he purchases a few bottles from him, hoping that the kid will be inspired by that simple transaction to do great things and give back to his community. On the second verse, however, he talks about how easy it is to hate on those who are more successful than us, as opposed to taking accountability for our lives and the daily decisions we make. The album then makes a brilliant subversion of its dream team on the tail end of the track, where younger Mike is woken up by a clock radio alarm and his mother, the latter of whom orders him to go to the grocery store. This moment serves as both an indication of how long Mike's dreams of success took to manifest and a subtle callback to the Wakefield track Bonner's, which started with Mike and his friends going to the Bonner's grocery store and concluded with their sudden encounter with a neighborhood gang. This leads to what is arguably the best track on this album, The Function in the Field. Gotta love that Outkast approach to the title. I'll let y'all know one time, this is a certified summer smash. Over a bright, bouncy instrumental by Third House and vocal assistance by Ebony Calhoun-Smith and Lachey, Mike gives us a nostalgic, picturesque portrait of Wakefield from the highs of basketball games and barbecue parties to the lows of gang activity and occasional scuffles and confrontations. The beauty of the song is Mike's desire to go back in time, if only for the beat's duration, to those carefree days where he refused to allow the negative elements of his environment to overshadow his life. I say the beat's duration because on the song's final third, we get a switch up to a more contemporary and weighty instrumental. Mike instinctively wakes up from that dream and delivers a verse centered on his drive to continue moving forward without clinging to immature ideals still exhibited by some of his peers. And even when he makes a humble brag about receiving a $10,000 check from AT&T for his company, that actually happened by the way, the song ends with an audio clip alluding to the fact that his life's mission is far from over. We then get the irresistibly smooth R&B styled vibes of Headlines. And before you ask yourself what rapper also put out a song with that title years before he got involved in one of the greatest rap beefs in music history, Mike starts his verse with 3 references to Kendrick Lamar's Grammy-winning album, GNX. He starts with a subtle interpolation of the lyrical backbone of Hey Now, Extra, Extra, Read All About It. Continues with a reference to TV Off, I turn on the television and my name is on the station, and concludes with a shout out to Kendrick and his song Man of the God, knowing I deserve it all resonate with Kendrick's statement. While it is a straightforward celebratory cut with a few mentions of the haters who still can't process Mike's hard-earned victories, Headlines excels at its thoughtful perspective on those victories and the importance of being grateful for every one of them. As to be expected, the album concludes on a strong note with Days to Remember. Mike utilizes the track's reflective production to reflect on the sacrifices made by his loved ones to help realize his dreams. The inclusion of his father on the opening track comes back full circle, as Mike raps about the hard work he put in to keep his household financially stable. Afterwards, he talks about his mother's work at DHS and how it helped other mothers in taking better care of their children. He compares that quite beautifully to the current work his wife does, part of which involves the continual growth of DAYVISION. Final verse hits the hardest as Mike shifts his focus towards himself, informing us that he continues to put in work through his music and film ventures for his family, loved ones, and community. In a truly memorable moment on the song and album, he mentions that back in the days, he used LimeWire, that still exists, believe it or not, now as a file sharing website and not the free music downloading software we knew and loved. To make mix CDs that he would sell to make some money. Not that many musical artists would admit that in a song, and for that, I applaud Mike's bravery in doing so. But it's the following couplet that not only justifies why he did that, but why he must continually maintain himself as a shining example of success to his hometown. Was too afraid to be on the corner, because homies looking like me will get locked up before attaining diplomas. Overall, I loved Daydreams the album. In addition to quelling my concern back in 2023 that Wakefield, which actually made it to my top 10 list of favorite albums of that year, by the way, was the last time we'd hear of Mike Day, this record proves that he still has a lot to say about pursuing dreams and shaping a brighter future for the next generation of artists. With his cohesive sound, resonant themes, and Mike's compelling representation of himself as the underdog who made it, this album feels like the released soundtrack to a movie you're dying to see, but hasn't been released yet. But like Tyson, Jordan, Jackson, and Day on its cover, Daydreams the album leaves us with the message that your name could be on a cinema marquee one day, if you're still willing to dream. And that's my review of Daydreams the album, which I'm feeling a light 9 out of 10 on. It's now available on Spotify and iTunes. If you checked it out, feel free to let me know what your thoughts were on it in the comment section to this video. And yeah, it's a wrap.